All right, so get this picture. You're at the 60th Presidential Inauguration Day ceremony.
Oh, wow.
Inside the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol building, Trump and his family, politicians, celebrities.
Big names.
Everyone's there. All eyes are on Carrie Underwood. She's about to sing America the Beautiful.
Classic.
And we've got this article here from Fox News, and it goes into detail about what happened when a technical mishap turned this performance into a total internet sensation.
Yeah, it's fascinating how one single event, something like this, can become this lens, this focal point for all these different perspectives.
Yeah.
You've got the political context, obviously can't get away from that at a presidential inauguration, and then the power of live performance.
Yeah.
And then layered on top of that, you've got all of this social media commentary.
Okay, so let's set the scene here. We've got Carrie Underwood on stage, the music starts, and then it just stops dead air.
Oh, no.
You can practically feel the awkward tension through the article. I'm curious from a performance standpoint, what is going through an artist's mind in that moment?
I mean, just imagine the pressure you're at. This meticulously planned event, millions of people are watching, and suddenly you're just stranded there without your musical safety net.
Right.
It's going to be like a performer's worst nightmare.
Absolutely. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Carrie Underwood, she doesn't miss a beat.
Professional.
She checks with the production team, turns to the audience and says, "If you know the words, help me out here."
Wow.
And she just launches into a cappella rendition of America the Beautiful.
Bold move.
I mean, it's not every day you see someone belt out America the Beautiful a cappella at a presidential inauguration.
Definitely not. But, the internet, as you can imagine, had a field day.
Oh, absolutely. The article highlights some pretty colorful reactions. Some were just praising her talent. Things like, Carrie Underwood doesn't need autotune. Autotune probably takes notes from her.
Okay, that's a little much, but I get the sentiment. Right. And then there were those reactions that tied it back to the whole political climate things. This pretty much sums up the spirit of America. When you're faced with a problem, you don't stop. You just keep moving ahead.
It's wild how people took this technical glitch and turned it into this whole political metaphor.
Yeah.
It makes you think, are we projecting our own beliefs onto these celebrities even when they haven't actually said anything political themselves?
It's like the mishap itself became this Rorschach test for people's political leanings.
Interesting.
Which raises a really interesting question. How much does the context, the political atmosphere surrounding an event, color our perception of what we're actually seeing?
That's a great point. It's like we can't help but view things through our own personal lens, especially in such a, highly charged political climate.
For sure.
But before we get too deep into that, there's another layer to this story that I want to unpack.
Okay.
The article mentions that before the inauguration, Carrie Underwood made a statement expressing her honor to be involved and her belief in unity. But what's interesting is that she generally steers clear of making public political statements.
Right.
So how do we reconcile that with her performing at such a politically charged event?
Well, that's where things get really nuanced. On the one hand, you have this incredible display of talent and professionalism in the face of adversity.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, you have this backdrop of political tension.
Yeah.
And this fact that simply being present at such an event can be interpreted as an endorsement.
It's like this tightrope walk for these artists. They're trying to navigate their careers and share their art without necessarily aligning themselves with any particular political stance.
Right.
But the audience might not always make that distinction.
Exactly. It makes you wonder how much we as an audience should or should not factor in artists' personal life and political views into our appreciation of their art.
Right.
It's a question without easy answers.
And speaking of the audience, there's one reaction in particular that really stood out to me. It just said, "This was bad."
Whoa, talk about cutting to the chase.
Right, and it really highlights that even in a moment like this, where there's this, impressive display of skill and resilience, there's still going to be people who just aren't into it.
Absolutely.
And that's okay too, right?
Of course not everyone is going to resonate with every performance, and personal preferences are always going to play a role. But that diversity of opinion, I think, is part of what makes this whole thing so interesting to unpack.
All right, so we've talked about the mishap, the reactions, the political undertones. But there's another element here that I think is worth exploring.
Okay.
The article mentions that after her performance, Carrie Underwood shook Biden's hand and then shared a moment with Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance before leaving the stage.
Interesting.
It's almost like these little interactions, these behind-the-scenes moments, add another layer of humanity to this whole event.
Yeah, humanizes it a little bit.
Exactly, and it reminds us that this wasn't just some performance happening in a vacuum. This was a real-life event with real people, each carrying their own baggage and perspective.
Right.
But to fully understand how this whole thing played out, I think we need to rewind a bit.
Okay, all ears.
The article highlights Carrie Underwood's journey from, American Idol champ to this pivotal performance on the national stage.
Quite a journey.
I'm curious, how much does that reality TV background play into the public's perception of her in this political context?
That's a great question. Let's dive into that next. It's fascinating how American Idol, a show rooted in entertainment and populism, can become a stepping stone to performing at a presidential inauguration, an event steeped in tradition and, political significance.
Yeah, you've got that right. It's like she's bridging these two very different worlds, and I wonder if that American Idol background makes people more likely to project their own political views onto her, since she's not really known for being overtly political,
It's definitely possible. I mean, reality TV stars often cultivate this, relatable every person image.
Yeah.
And that can make it easier for viewers to see themselves in those stars and by extension project their own values and beliefs onto them.
So it's almost like by not taking a strong political stance, she becomes this blank canvas for people to paint their own narratives onto.
Exactly. And that can be both a blessing and a curse for celebrities, especially in today's hyper-political climate. On the one hand, it can broaden their appeal, make them seem more accessible to a wider audience.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it can lead to misunderstandings and misinterpretations, like we saw with the reactions to this performance.
It's a tricky balance to strike, but let's zoom out for a second and think about the broader implications of celebrities participating in political events. Like, does accepting an invitation to perform at an inauguration imply endorsement?
That's a tough one. I think it really depends on the artist and the context.
Yeah.
Some artists might see it as an opportunity to use their platform to promote a message of unity or patriotism, regardless of their personal political views. Others might be more cautious, aware that their presence alone could be interpreted as, taking sides.
It's a minefield for sure, and it raises all sorts of ethical dilemmas. How should artists balance their personal views with their public roles? Is it even possible to separate the art from the artist in a situation like this?
I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all answer.
Yeah.
I mean, each artist has to grapple with these questions and make their own decisions based on their values and their goals.
Yeah.
But I do think it's important for us as the audience to be aware of these complexities and to, avoid jumping to conclusions about an artist's motivations based solely on their participation in a political event.
Speaking of complexities, the article mentions that this inauguration ceremony was held inside the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol, and I can't help but think about the weight of history that comes with that setting.
Absolutely. The rotunda's got the backdrop for some of those significant moments in American history: presidential inaugurations, state funerals, moments of national mourning.
Yeah.
It all adds this layer of, gravitas to this already momentous event.
And for Carrie Underwood, who just a few years ago was competing on a reality TV singing competition, to be performing on that stage in that setting, it's a pretty surreal journey.
It really highlights the unpredictable nature of fame and the blurring lines between entertainment and politics. I mean, we're seeing more and more celebrities stepping into the political arena, using their platforms to advocate for causes they believe in.
Which brings us back to the central question of this deep dive. How much does an artist's personal life and political views influence our perception of their art? Is it even possible to separate the two?
It's something we grapple with constantly, whether we realize it or not. Our own biases, our experiences, our opinions, they all shape how we interpret everything, and art is no exception.
Right.
But I do think it's worth striving for a degree of separation, at least, to try and appreciate the art for what it is, regardless of the artist's personal life.
I agree, but it's easier said than done, right? Especially in today's world where information is so readily available and everything feels so interconnected, it's hard to completely compartmentalize.
Absolutely, and the rise of social media has only amplified this phenomenon.
Yeah.
We have access to more information about celebrities than ever before, and it can be difficult to ignore that context when we, engage with their work.
Yeah.
But I think it's a worthwhile exercise to try and step back, acknowledge our own biases, and appreciate the art for what it is, even if we disagree with the artist's personal views.
Or before we wrap up, I want to circle back to the actual performance itself. The article describes how Underwood, after the music cut out, just took a deep breath, and kept going, her voice filling the rotunda.
Powerful image.
And I think that's what resonated with so many people. It wasn't just about her singing ability, it was about her grace under pressure, her resilience in the face of a challenge.
You've got that right.
Yeah.
It was like a masterclass in composure and adaptability.
Yeah.
And I think it resonated because it mirrored something we all strive for. The ability to stay calm, think on our feet, find a way to keep moving forward, even when things don't go according to plan.
Yeah.
It was a reminder that even in the most carefully orchestrated moments, life can throw you a curveball. And it's how you respond that truly defines you.
It's like that old saying, the show must go on. But in this case, it became something more than just going on. It became this testament to the power of human resilience, to finding beauty and meaning, even in the unexpected.
Yeah, it really is amazing how a moment like that can become so much bigger than just a performance. And it makes you think about those unexpected moments we all face in our own lives, right?
Absolutely. We all have those times when, the carefully laid plans go out the window and we're just left there scrambling to figure things out.
Exactly. The question is, how do we react when that happens? Do we freeze up? Do we give up? Or do we take a deep breath, worry our inner Carrie Underwood, and find a way to make it work?
Yeah, because let's be real, life rarely goes exactly as planned. There's always going to be some unexpected twist or turn.
For sure.
What matters is how we navigate those challenges. How we tap into our own resilience and find a way to keep the song going, even when the music stops. I love that analogy. It's like Carrie Underwood standing on that stage, facing the silence and choosing to keep singing. It's a powerful reminder that we all have that strength within us.
And think about the impact.
Yeah.
Millions of people witnessed that moment, and who knows how many of them were inspired by her composure, by her ability to turn the potential disaster into a moment of, unexpected beauty.
It's like she unintentionally gave this masterclass in handling the unexpected, and the lesson is we all have the power to do the same, to face those curveballs head on and find our own way to shine.
Exactly. So the next time you find yourself in a situation where things aren't going according to plan, remember, Carrie Underwood, take a deep breath and know that you too can own the moment.
It's a great reminder that even in the silence, there's still music to be made, and sometimes those unplanned moments lead to the most beautiful performances of all.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time for us to wrap up this deep dive.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.